Hello, what's up YouTube? Ronnix with another tutorial, and in this tutorial I'll show you guys high-end skin retouching in Photoshop in the very shortest time possible, whereby we're going to be doing frequency separation, eye whitening, dodging and burning, how to export images in Photoshop, and also color grading using my medium to dark skin tone LUTs. So in order to purchase my retouching essentials pack, I'm going to put the link for you guys in the description of this video so that you can purchase and support this channel for the free content that we always give you guys, and also purchase the medium to dark skin tone LUTs that are going to enable you speed up, first of all, your color grading process, and also make your work uniform and look more professional. So the links are going to be in the description of this video. So we're going to be learning about frequency separation. So what is frequency separation? Frequency separation is a skin retouching technique that is going to divide the image into the high frequency layer and the low frequency layer. So with those two layers, we get the image in the color layer and also the texture layer. So when you combine both layers, you're going to be able to get back the image the way it is meant to be. So let me show you guys what I mean by that demonstration. I'm going to create those two layers by coming to the background and hitting Ctrl J once or Command J once and Command J the second time. I'm going to name this rather low, and I'm going to name this high, just like that. So turn off the high frequency layer and select the low frequency layer. So in the low frequency layer, we only want to remain with the colors and the skin tones in this image. And in order to remain with those colors or skin tones, I'm going to come to File, rather Filter, come to Blur, and come to Gaussian Blur. So when you come to Gaussian Blur, we're going to take the radius all the way down. So make sure you select the area that has more textures than the rest of the image. And for this case, I think this area has more textures. And simply start moving this radius to the right hand side. So basically click like that, left click, and start moving gradually until you're losing out on the textures in the image. So I think at around 9 we have lost out on all the textures. So you have to stop at that point. When you start losing out on the textures completely, simply hit OK, and you can see that the image turns out to look a little bit blurry, but that shouldn't be your worry. Come and select the high frequency layer, and for the high frequency layer, remember we only want to remain with the skin textures or the outlines in the image. So come and select the eye icon to bring back the visibility of that. Then come back to image and come to apply image. So when you come to apply image, make sure you select the layer which is the low frequency layer. Remember, this layer hides the textures when you're trying to remove them, so it preserves them somewhere else. So we want to get those textures and we place them in the high frequency layer. So in order to do that, we want to come to make sure the channel is RGB. The blending, since this is an 8-bit image, we are going to be using the settings for an 8-bit image. So for an 8-bit image, come and make sure you change the blending mode from multiply to subtract. Make sure the opacity is 100, the scale is to offset 128, preserve transparency and mask are not checked, and make sure the invert option is not turned on or it is not checked, and make sure the preview is on so that you can see what is happening to the image in real time. So when you're done doing that, you're going to notice that the image is going to be having the textures on this gray kind of layer. So the reason that's why I have not explained this is because we wanted to put the textures on the gray kind of layer, which is 50% gray. That's why we divided the colors in 256, divide by 2 to get this value, so that we can put the textures on this gray kind of layer. So come and hit OK. But if at all you have a 16-bit image, make sure you select the layer as the low layer, and blending mode has to be add, opacity at 100, preserve transparency and mask are not checked, the scale is to offset 0. Make sure you turn on the invert option to have the same result. So come down here, but since this is an 8-bit image, you're going to come and change the blending mode to subtract and turn off the invert, and opacity 100, preserve transparency and mask are not checked. The scale is to offset 128, invert is not checked, the preview is on, and simply hit OK. Change the blending mode from a normal and look for the linear light to get back the image the way it was meant to be. Select Command and select both layers, or click on both layers and hit Ctrl Command G on the keyboard to group them, and simply double click, rename to frequency separation. Open this and select the high frequency layer and come and create the black and white layer inside of the frequency separation group, and simply click on the red channel and drag towards the left hand side to darken it. So we want to blend or even out the skin tones in this image, so come and select the low frequency layer and now come under the brushes. So you may be wondering why my tool is looking like this cross icon. So always make sure you turn off the caps lock key every time you're doing skin retouching in Photoshop. So turn it off and you get back the tool the way it was meant to look. Come under the brushes and right click and look for your mixer brush tool. So we're going to make sure it is a clean brush, so drop down and select clean brush. We have two options right here. We have load the brush after each and every stroke and clean the brush after each and every stroke. So you have to make sure you select clean the brush after each and every stroke. The whiteness has to be 9, load 75, mix 90, flow at 100. Make sure sample all layers is not checked or marked, and make sure that you're on your low frequency layer. So we want to blend or even out the skin tones in the image. So in order to even out these tones, make sure you zoom in slightly. Don't over zoom in like this, because you're not going to be able to see the uneven skin tone transitions in the image. So just zoom in slightly, hold down the space bar, left click and move down, or you can alternatively use these options to move the image up and down or sideways by using the bottom one rather. So left click, hold down and start moving the brush up and down just like that. So when you're blending, make sure you blend the midtones alone, the highlights alone and the shadows alone in an image. So make sure you don't drag the brush from the highlights to the shadows, because that is going to distort the original shape of the model's face. So make sure you don't do that. So you can see this. So let's see the progress so far. Turn this off and you can see the before and after just using a few strokes of the mixer brush tool. So we're going to continue doing that. Come back and select or turn this back on and select the low frequency layer and continue evening out the skin tones using the mixer brush tool just like that. Increase on the size and just continue blending or evening out the skin tones using the mixer brush tool. So make sure you blend the midtones alone, the highlights alone and the shadows. So you have to blend a particular area the way it is shaped. So if at all this light is falling like this, so you have to move your mixer brush tool towards that direction. And you can see when it comes to the nose area, what I'm trying to explain is you can simply reduce on the size and blend the shadows right like this. So blend those shadows alone and come this side and also blend or even out those shadows so that you can have nice transitions between the shadow area, and just do that. So I hope you can see what I'm doing. So I'm just going to continue doing this or evening out on the skin tones just like that. So I'm holding down the space bar key to hover around the image and make sure that every area has been blended well enough in this image. So I'm going to reduce on the size and continue blending. So you may be wondering why I still have blemishes. I prefer to remove the blemishes using frequency separation. That is going to enable me have the best results out of my skin retouching process. So I'm just going to continue doing this. So I'm going to reduce on the size and just even out right there. So zoom out and see the results so far. So come back, turn this off and turn this on and off to see the progress for your retouching. I'm just going to come. You can as well work without the help of the black and white layer, but I just prefer to use it for purposes of knowing where to blend and where not even, or to see the transitions within the skin tones well. So if I told you do trust your site, you can as well work without it. So it is not like a guarantee that you must always use the black and white layer. So you can as well work without it. So I just wanted to show you guys that it is possible to work without the black and white layer, and the results are going to also be the same. Just going to come and blend in these areas. So let's say before and after, before, after. So we just want to fine tune the result we have just achieved using the Mr. Brush tool by using the second tool, which is the lasso tool. So I'm just going to select the black and white layer and hit delete to delete it, and come back and select the low frequency layer. Come and get my lasso tool. Make sure the feathering is 22 pixels because we want to find edges from the selections from the lasso tool. So come and left click and draw over the skin just like that. So make sure you draw the shape the way that area is shaped rather, and simply come to filter, blur, and come back to Gaussian blur. So when you come to Gaussian blur, you're going to get back this radius that we had when we are creating our frequency separation group. So simply start moving this radius towards the right hand side. So left click and start dragging this up to a point when you're having, or when you feel like you have the best out of the skin texture. So I think around 27 I have a nice texture on the model skin. So simply hit OK. I'm going to be applying this onto the rest of the image. So just going to draw that shape. You can see the way I'm drawing this shape. Right click and come to Gaussian blur. I'm just going to come and draw the other shape just like that. Right click and apply Gaussian blur. And if at all you feel like the effect is too much for your liking, you can simply right click on this selection and you're going to bring fade Gaussian blur, and you can simply reduce on the opacity or reduce on the effect of the Gaussian blur. So just going to leave everything at like 100%. I'm just going to draw these shapes and continue applying the effect of the Gaussian blur onto the overall image to really fine tune it just like that. Right click and come to Gaussian blur. And guys, don't forget to check out my actions or retouching essentials pack, because this is going to fasten your skin retouching process, and you're not going to be able to come back and create all those frequency separation layers that we created. So with just one click of a button, you're going to be able to get results or get to that step whereby you're just going to start doing the skin retouching anyway. And for the color grading, it is just a simple or a one-click action, and you're going to be able to get the best out of your skin tone colors or the color grading process in Photoshop. So let's see the before and after. So I only use this second method when I'm only fine-tuning the first area. So before, after, before, after. So it is time to remove the blemishes from this image. So select the high frequency layer, come and get the clone stamp tool. So this is the clone stamp tool, that is the one I want to use. So make sure opacity and the flow at 100. Aligned is also selected. So sampling, I only want to sample the current layer because this layer only contains the textures in the image. So I'm just going to zoom in just like that. So for removing blemishes, make sure you zoom in completely in order to see every blemish in the image well. So come increase on the size of the clone stamp tool by using the box brackets on the keyboard and start removing them. So hold down the alternate and left click to sample from a clean area of the skin and click over the blemish to remove it. So I'm just going to do that for the overall image to remove the blemishes the best way while retaining the original textures in the image. So I'm just going to do that to the overall image just like that. So just going to do this and clean up the blemishes from this image. So make sure you always take your time while removing blemishes. Remember, blemish removal is going to contribute over 70% to your overall skin retouching process. So make sure you always make sure to take your time while removing blemishes. So how I'm using the clone stamp tool, I'm left clicking holding down the alternate button on the keyboard, left clicking to sample from a clean area and releasing the alternate, and left clicking over the blemish to replace it with a cleaner part of the skin. So I'm just going to continue doing this to the overall image, and you're going to notice that this is going to really be a nice image. So always make sure that you take your time while you're removing blemishes from the images, and we don't want people to judge us by the blemishes we are able to remove, because we were not patient enough while retouching or removing the blemishes at this very step. So make sure you take your time while removing blemishes from your images in Photoshop. So I'm just going to do that and clean up the image even more and take my time. So as usual, for those that have always watched these tutorials, know that I don't prefer to forward anything. I always want you guys to see the results as we are working on the image, and I don't want to forward anything to make it sound like I have skipped or applied magic towards the retouching process. I want you guys to see every single step towards the retouching of all the images I'll be working on in these tutorials. So you can see what we have so far. So you have to keep on zooming in and out to see those most prominent blemishes that you want to get rid of from your images in Photoshop. So make sure you zoom in and out by using Command plus to see every area that has blemishes, and you try to clean it up. So I'm just going to zoom in here, and you can see we have blemishes, and had I not zoomed in this area, you wouldn't have seen these blemishes. So always make sure to do that. So alternate left click and blemish is going to be gone. So just do that and clean up the image just like that. So I'm basically cleaning up or removing blemishes from these images or this very image. So I think I'm done cleaning up the blemishes from the image. So the next method I prefer to use is to add shape or dimension to the image. So the before and after for the dodging and burning. So in order to add shape or dimension to the image, I'm going to be using the dodging and burning technique. So I'm just going to come to the curves area. So dodging and burning is more of enhancing the highlights and the shadows. So come to the curves. I'm going to be using the color range option because this adds or color grades the image for me as the first step for my color grading. So come to select and come to color range. So when you come to color range, it is going to open this other window for you. So make sure that selection is active and make sure quick mask is selected. Sampled layers is also active, and make sure the eyedropper tool is on, and simply select over the highlights in the image. So I'm just going to select over the highlight, and you can simply increase on the fuzziness just like that to increase on the selection of the highlights, and simply hit OK. So remember, we have just targeted the highlights, so I'm just going to click in the middle and just brighten up just a little bit to enhance the highlights even more. So before, after, before, after. I'm just going to do the same for my shadows. So come back to the curves, come to select, and I'm going to select or come to the color range option and sample from the shadows in the image. So I'm just going to sample like that up to a point when I feel like the shadows have been selected. So I could even turn down the fuzziness just a little bit or turn it slightly up. So hit OK on the keyboard, and now simply darken the shadows just like that. As you can see that this has really made the image look better. So before, after, but I feel like that is too much, so I'm just going to drop down the opacity of that to around 57. So before, after. So you could name this maybe burn, and the very first thing we did was the dodging. I'm going to put these two in a group, command and clicking on both, command G on the keyboard to group them. I'm going to name that dodge and burn, just like that. So this is the before and after for the dodging and burning So when you feel like this is affecting the colors in the image, you can simply come and change this from normal and change it to luminosity, and also do the same for the lower layer to luminosity, and you're going to close that group. So just want to do a little bit of eye whitening, eye and teeth whitening to this image. So what we want to do, we're just going to create a stamp visible layer by hitting Shift Alternate Control E on the keyboard, or Shift Alternate Command E on the keyboard, and you're going to duplicate that by hitting Control or Command J. Then come to Filter and come to the camera raw filter. So when you come to the camera raw filter, we're going to be using a tool known as the adjustment brush tool. So we're just going to zoom into the eye just like that. So come and get the adjustment brush tool, or the shortcut for that is K on the keyboard. So K for key, and now we're going to come and set the brush so that it can apply the settings or whiten the eye even more. So when you look at the eye area, you can see it has some little bit of yellows and greens and some other colors in this white area of the eye. So in order to eliminate yellows from this white area, you're going to simply come and turn down the temperature slider to the opposite of yellow, which is blue. So I'm just going to move this towards the blue side to around -27. And since we have greens in the white area of the eye, simply move this towards the opposite of green, which is magenta, to around 67. Then the whites to, since we want the eyes to pop, to around 5, and the highlights to around 5. Then since we have other colors, we're just going to desaturate those colors by turning down the saturation to around -68, and simply left click over the white area and start painting over that white area to whiten it. So you can see what I am doing, and you can simply enhance those catch lights in that white area of the eye. So just come and paint over. So only paint over what you feel like should be white in the white area of the eye, and don't paint over the skin because it's going to be removing color from the skin area. So hold down the space bar, left click, and move towards the other side of the eye, and also start whitening and painting over the white area to whiten it just like that. So I hope you guys can see and learn everything we are doing to this image. So spacebar, left click, and drag just like that to look for maybe the teeth, and just do a little bit of touch up right there on the teeth area just like that. So I hope you guys can see how nice this is. So let's say before and after for the eye whitening. So before, after, before, after. So I'm just going to open the image back into Photoshop for the color grading process. So in order to color grade, you're going to be using my medium to dark skin tone LUTs to color grade this image. So in order to use them, since I already loaded them into Photoshop, I'm just going to come to adjustments, then come to color lookup. So I'm just going to come to load 3D LUT, and I'm just going to scroll all the way down. So my LUT pack contains rather of around 9 LUTs. So these are going to be enabling you guys to color grade faster in Photoshop. So I'm just going to come and select my ronnixphotography alpha 1 cube LUT, and you can see what it has done to the image. So before, after, before, after. You can see how nice and beautiful the image has turned out to look. But I think this is way overdone, so you can simply come and reduce on the opacity just like that of the LUT. So you can see that this is really nice and amazing. Then you can as well check out the second LUT. So I'm just going to turn this up so you can see what it does to the image. So check out, maybe let's check out 8. I think 8 is really nice and amazing. So I'm just going to use 8 for this very sure, because I don't want to go through everything. But if at all you loved how it is color grading, you can simply check the download link and purchase my LUTs in the description of this video. Just going to turn down the opacity just like that of the LUTs, so just like that. So you can see that this looks nice and amazing. Just going to increase on the opacity to around 70, 72 can do for this. So before, after, before, after. It is just a simple click and just dropping down the opacity. I'm just going to come to selective color and do something little. So I'm just going to come to the blacks and I'm just going to push this towards -3 and simply add a little bit of blacks to this image. Then come to the vibrance and simply drop down the vibrance just a little bit to reduce on the amount of yellow. So I think the image looks now okay. So let's see what we have done so far for this very image. So this was the image initially before and after, before, after. You can see how nice and beautiful it has turned out to look using my LUTS, and I've just been able to color grade it with just a single click in Photoshop. So this has been a tutorial for you guys. If at all you are learning something, make sure you like this video and don't forget to subscribe if at all you are watching from this channel and you haven't subscribed yet. So the next thing or the last thing I want to do for this very image is showing you guys how to export an image so that you can have those nice and rich details in your images so that your image looks really nice and sharp. So simply come to File and come to Export and come to Export As. So when you come to Export As, you're just going to come and do set up this. So make sure you select the format as JPEG. So I'm going to select JPEG. I'm going to leave these the way they are meant to be, but resampling has to be a sharp version, which is going to be bicubic sharper, because I want a sharp and well detailed image at the end of my exporting process. So for those that always have color change after you have been able to edit or retouch your images, simply come and make sure to select convert sRGB and also embed color profile. That's why you're not going to be able to experience that problem of having a color change when you have exported your images. And after doing all that, simply come and hit export. So when you hit export, you can rename the image to whatever you want. Maybe I'm going to name this maybe Ronnix Alpha, just like that, and select a folder where you want the image to be exported and hit save, and the image is going to be saved in that very folder. So this has been a tutorial for you guys about skin retouching, how to whiten eyes, how to do your dodging and burning, and also how to remove blemishes in Photoshop. And if at all you have loved this tutorial, don't forget to like this video and don't forget to subscribe to this channel if at all you have been watching from this channel for the very first time. And don't forget to purchase and support this channel by buying those LUTs in the description of this very video. So we have the medium to dark skin tone LUTs that are going to enable you color grade with just a simple click, and also my actions that are going to enable you fasten your skin retouching process in Photoshop. Ronnix from ronnixphotography. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in yet more tutorials on this channel. Don't forget to keep practicing and keep creating.